Hey folks, welcome to Book Chatter. I am your host Stacy Cochran, and we have an outstanding panel of folks with us this evening. Tonight we are talking about Bouchercon. Now Bouchercon is the World Mystery Writers Convention, and it's coming up this next week in October in Indianapolis, Indiana, and we have some outstanding authors and organizers with us on the line tonight. To get things started, we have Monty Draper, who is the registration chair for Bouchercon this year. We also have John Jordan, and John is the co-chair of the St. Louis Bouchercon scheduled for 2011. In addition to that, we have J.A. Konrath, who is an author extraordinaire and has many books available, and he will be heading up the book bazaar this year at Bouchercon. Thank you all very much for being on the show tonight.
Happy to do it.
Glad to be here.
Well, my first question is just kind of a general question for the viewers that we have out there who are unfamiliar with Bouchercon. John, this question is for you. What is Bouchercon, and what is the story of its formation?
Well, this is the 40th anniversary, and it goes back, the first one was held in California with under, I think, 20 people, and it's just basically a bunch of guys who love mysteries got together and had a meal and invited a guest of honor. And little by little over time, it got bigger and bigger. More people started coming. And it eventually became more formalized. They started moving from city to city, increasing the number of guests of honor. And it's basically become the biggest mystery convention in the world right now. And it's named after Anthony Boucher, who was a New York Times reviewer who reviewed mysteries and was one of the very first reviewers to actually take them serious, not making the distinction, oh, it's not literature, and just treat them like what they are, damn good books. And he actually was an author himself with both science fiction and crime fiction.
What are some of your fondest memories, John? You've been to a lot of these. How many Bouchercons have you been to? How many have you organized? And what are some of your fondest memories?
The first one I did, I went in '99, and I actually met my wife there. And so that's probably my fondest Bouchercon memory in general.
You know, John, I don't want to interrupt you, but my fondest Bouchercon memory was also meeting your wife.
Yeah, actually, there's probably more than one person who says that, hopefully for different reasons than mine. But, you know, it's Bouchercon for me, every year it's a little bit different, and it's still kind of the same in a good way. I mean, I always have a fanboy moment every single year. And you would think after all this time, with all the authors I've met and all the involvement I've had, that would eventually stop, but it really doesn't. In Toronto, I got to meet Michael Slade, who is actually Jay Clark and writes some of my favorite books. I've met William Link, who developed Mannix. I've just met so many cool people over the years at this. And for me, the best part about Bouchercon is always the people who go there, the authors and the fans. And it's kind of weird because, you know, at the day job or in regular life, not everybody I know reads mysteries. And so, you know, it's almost isolating sometimes. And then you get together with this huge group of people who all have the exact same interests you do. And it's like a 12-step meeting that you don't want to recover from.
Well, Monty, now... Monty, you...
Can I interrupt?
Go right ahead, Joe.
It's important for your listeners to know who John and his wife, Ruth are. John and Ruth Jordan came into this whole mystery thriller scene as fans. But there's something magnetic about the two of them that just attracts authors. They're currently the editors and publishers of Crime Stream magazine, which is, you know, probably the best mystery magazine in the past century, at least the past 50 years. And the number of people they know, when John says he has fanboy moments, that's rare for him because they know absolutely everybody. He's probably got 5 to 10 New York Times bestsellers just on speed dial on his cell phone. These two know a tremendous number of authors. So for him to still get excited about this when he knows so many damn people. That kind of shows what a big deal Bouchercon is.
Well, it really is, and it's like you said, it's the largest mystery writers convention in the world, which leads to my next question, Monty. What can you tell us about operating a nonprofit organization of this size? Specifically, what kind of things should someone considering a nonprofit like this be aware of?
Well, first of all, it is incorporated in each city that they have a convention in, and so every year it's every time they do this, it's a massive amount of legal work and accounting, and since that happens to be my expertise, and I was happy to volunteer it for Bouchercon, I incorporated them. I got them their 501c6 status with the IRS, and I've been filing their information returns and keeping them legal with the state of Indiana. And John, having done this numerous times, I'm amazed he's still willing to get out there and do it again, because every time you do this, you basically recreate the whole wheel again, and it's very complex.
Well, and this is going to be my first time as a full-fledged chair, though.
Yeah.
And had I known the amount of work going into it, but the truth is, I think right now the sticky red tape part, for the most part, is done.
Oh yeah.
And now it's just a matter of balancing all the information coming in.
Right. Well, and you got the early start, and you got right on it. Some people aren't as organized as John. I found John to be very, very organized, and he listens, and he takes direction well, and then he executes. And I predict that St. Louis 2011 will run really smoothly, especially if he learns from all our mistakes.
Well, and that's the beauty of this, is I think each single year, while you get the unique perspective of having another group organizing it every year, the past few years and a couple of years coming up, it's a group of people who all know each other, and we're all getting along. And so we're actually talking to each other. I've got people from Madison and previous conventions saying, we tried this, it didn't go so well. If you do this, maybe try this angle instead. And, like this author bazaar, this is a new idea, and if it takes off and it's a hit, then we definitely know that's something we want to do.
Yeah, it was Joe's idea.
Even if it doesn't quite work the way Joe had originally planned, it's still worth maybe trying once or twice more just to see. But, I mean, every single year something new comes about. And, so it's constantly evolving and constantly getting better.
Yeah, this year I told him the only way I would do the job, I do the legal work because that's what I do for a living. I'm a lawyer, and I said, yeah, I'd be happy to do that. And I said I'd have to be happy to be registration chair only if I could use an online automated system so that we could take credit cards.
And thank God we did.
and it has made, I have basically processed, well, we have over 1,550 confirmed registrations right now, and we've had some people who've registered and canceled. So I've dealt with over 1,650 registrations by myself.
That's amazing.
And it's been, and that's the part that's running very smoothly. Thank you very much. It's all the other stuff. It's all the people changing their minds.
After watching Ruth go through Baltimore, and granted, PayPal did make things easier, but, after seeing how much work she did on that, the online registration is like night and day.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine what these people went through 20, 30 years ago when everything was snail mail, there was no email, trying to set up panels and stuff with 5 different authors via mail. Oh, my God.
And looking at it from my A-type perspective as a lawyer and a not-for-profit lawyer, knock on wood, the IRS probably isn't going to be interested in us because we're not big enough. But, the nice thing about the automated system that we're using is all the data that I'm going to get out of it, and all the, reports that I'll have to prove, these people paid this way, and here's where the money went, and all of that. Because that's one thing about not-for-profits, especially after Enron and the Sarbanes-Oxley Act, which none of you are really interested in. But the government has tightened the screws on how they look at not-for-profits, and they are auditing more than they used to in the past. So when you're running something like this, you always have to keep in the back of your mind, am I dotting all my I's and crossing all my T's? And a system like this helps, if nothing else, organize the financials. And plus, I'm going to be able to download all this wonderful database and pass it on to Ray next year for San Francisco and to John for St. Louis. And it's a database of all those 1,650 plus names of people who are interested in this conference and who might be interested in coming to St. Louis or in 2011 or San Francisco in 2010.
I think
what's really cool about Bouchercon is I think a lot of people, when they go to their first one, it's somewhat local. They can drive to it, or it's in their hometown. And once they've been to one, it's like a drug. They're hooked.
Yeah.
And then they start going to ones out of town and start going to other smaller cons and other cons because you need that fix. I mean, we go for like 2.5 months without some kind of a gathering of at least 15 authors. I mean, I get jitters.
Well, I want to get Joe in on this conversation, if I can. I want to get Joe in on this conversation now. Monty, you had mentioned a moment ago, you guys had been talking about this book bazaar. Joe, tell us a little bit about what the book bazaar is and what is its goal at this year's Bouchercon.
Well, the whole idea behind the book bazaar is I, being an author, know that the reason I go to conferences is to meet as many fans as possible. And unless you're a bestseller, chances are most of the fans aren't going to know who you are. If you have a panel or two, maybe you'll be able to talk to 50 fans, maybe 100 fans, but there are 1,500 people coming. That's a lot of people that you're missing. And when you're an author and you're spending your money for the conference and for travel, you're really not getting a lot for your buck, other than having a pretty good time. So my idea behind the book bazaar was, how can we get authors, the new authors, the mid-list authors, not the huge best-selling ones, but the ones who make up the meat and potatoes of the mystery community and of Bouchercon, how do we get them to show their wares to the fans? And I thought, well, the obvious way to do that is to give away books. Everybody loves getting free books.
Sure.
And if authors want to connect with fans, it's sort of like the drug dealer on the corner. You give them the first sample of crack for free, and then you've got a customer for life. So for the book bazaar, I thought, wouldn't it be great if we had 50 or 100, or in this case, 112 authors all giving away their books? And the fans could come in, and rather just everybody taking everything, they're going to have a limited number of tickets, and they can exchange these tickets for books. So for 2 hours, authors get to talk one-on-one with fans. There's no pressure to sell because all the books are free, and the fans get to choose what they want to take home for free, rather than previous years where everybody would just get a goodie bag filled with books that they didn't necessarily want, which always resulted in a lot of waste. So that's the book bazaar in a nutshell.
Sounds like a great idea. What potential headaches do you see with this, since you're going to be running it?
Well, I'm running it, so there's going to be no headache. I'm going to be drunk at the time, so it's not like I'm going to even care if something happens.
Awesome.
Joe has helped with putting together all the verbiage that we've been sticking in the envelopes and putting on the website, and then he's supposed to show up. And then he's going to be like the MC for 2 hours. He's going to go around and give everybody a chance to say who they are and what they write. And knowing Joe, he'll get all the little shy, retiring authors to talk.
Everybody's going to get some mic time, which is going to be fun. It's going to be limited mic time. You're going to have a 30-second soundbite, but every author is going to get to talk to a room full of probably about 1,000 people.
Well, and David Morrell said it. He said you should be able to take what you're writing and boil it down to 2 sentences.
Absolutely. Oh, by the way, I'm writing a series about a cop named Jack Daniels. Jack is a female detective from Chicago. All the books are named after drinks. They're scary, but they're also very funny.
There you have it.
Laugh out loud, snort coke up your nose, funny.
Thank you, but you know what? You shouldn't be snorting coke. It's not legal.
Well, I mean the Coca-Cola Coke.
No, you couldn't put that up your nose either.
I know that hurt.
It does hurt. I've done it as well.
Well, John, tell us a little bit about St. Louis. Why are you co-chairing the convention in St. Louis with David Thompson of Busted Flush Press?
Well, after Ruth got the okay to do Baltimore, and she was approved to go ahead with it, she was up in Alaska for the Bouchercon up there, and I know that they were looking for bids for future Bouchercons. The people from St. Louis in the tourist commission and from one of the hotels were in Milwaukee on business and asked if they could get together with us, not realizing that it's a different group of people every year. And so we took a meeting with them, and we said, well, you know, we really don't want to do it again, and we're not even done with Baltimore. And I know how much Ruth and Judy did for that, and even just the help I did, we'd be insane to do it again. And so I'm thinking, well, she's up in Alaska. I'm going to find somebody else to do this. And the first person that popped into my mind was David Thompson, who runs Busted Flush. He works at Murder by the Book, which his wife McKenna owns in Houston. And he loves the genre. He's energetic. He's innovative. He's got great ideas. He thinks outside the box. And I figured he'd be perfect for this. And in trying to talk him into it, I ended up saying, well, how about if I do it with you? So Ruth got home from Alaska, and I'm like, honey, I did something stupid. And truthfully, we went down to St. Louis that first weekend to check it out, and we had such a great time, it just seemed like a no-brainer. The city's wonderful. Working with David has already been a breeze. You know, we're different enough that we're going to complement each other on getting things done. And we've got a good support team in place already with previous hosts and other people in the business. And after spending that weekend down in St. Louis, we were just convinced it's perfect. Where our hotel is right in the center of the city, 15-minute walk from the Arch, ton of restaurants, bowling alleys, things to do all within walking distance. It's a great city. And the hotel is thrilled to have us.
In kind of a general sense, why would somebody, you know, I remember some advice that Joe gave me a few years ago. He was like, if anybody asks you to do something like chair a conference, run far, far away. So why would somebody want to host a Bouchercon? It just seems like a huge amount of work.
Well, I think part of it is, it is a lot of work, but the trick is getting other people to do the work with you. And I don't want to use the word sucker, but, you know, we managed to convince a lot of people to pick up certain parts of it. We've got somebody who's
a different word, John.
Well, we've got somebody who's going to step in and take care of the program book for us. We've got somebody who's going to do the media PR for us. We've got somebody who's going to work as a library liaison. So little by little, you put these people together, and it picks away at the monstrosity that is the work involved. And part of the reason I wanted to do it was just because I've gotten so much out of Bouchercon over the years, and it's become a big part of my life. And I just wanted to do one and kind of give back, you know, because of all the other people who put them on before us, you know, and hopefully people will see that it's not as much work as they think, and they can do it, and it'll keep going forward. So I'm just kind of paying back for all the good Bouchercons I've been to.
What did you learn by doing the Baltimore Bouchercon last year that you'll change for St. Louis?
Well, one of the big things is watching how much work Ruth put into keeping track of registrations, which, thanks to Moni, we've already updated. We've got the online registration as well, so does San Francisco, and that's already making a big difference. I'm thinking as far as like local media, get on the ground running a little bit earlier, and we're actually thinking outside the box for a few things. We're thinking, we're looking into some corporate sponsorship, and possibly bringing some big corporations to give us some money to help offset things and keep the cost of the registration down. Because to me, the more money we can put back into the convention towards the fans, the better. And if we can offset that by having some big-name corporation come in and underwrite Robert Crace coming in or Sarah Pretsky, I'm all for it. So I want to see if we can, you know, start bringing in some money from outside the book community a little bit.
That's awesome. Now, Monty, what can you tell us about what the registration chair does? And how does your background, you mentioned that you're a lawyer, how does that help as the registration chair?
Well, Yeah, well, registrations here basically just takes the registrations, but my job this year got a little expanded because of all the, we're doing a lot of ticketed events. We're doing some pre-events on Wednesday, and then there are some luncheons and some interesting craft. We have a lot of the cozy authors that have craft mysteries, and some of those authors are doing 1-hour sessions for 30 fans and demonstrating the craft that their detective does in their cozy mystery. And so we have tickets for those. So I'm basically, I am the ticket keeper. I am the ticket distributor. I am doing all that. And the only reason, my legal background has nothing to do with this at all, except I'm A-type. So I'm just organized. So it takes somebody organized to do this job. And I cannot imagine Ruth doing it without the online system. I would not even want to think about sitting and entering all this into an Excel spreadsheet.
Let me tell you, every Sunday morning, you would sit down in here and print out all the PayPal stuff and open up all the envelopes. And that last 2 or 3 months before the convention was the worst.
Yes.
And then the last 2 weeks, all of a sudden, you've got people at the last minute. Mom broke her hip. I've decided to go ahead and get the chemo early.
That's right.
And so you're dealing with all that. But basically, she sat here for hours and hours every Sunday. And it was my job to basically keep the coffee cup filled and the cigarette lit.
Yeah. Well, my husband's helped out immensely, and basically telling me not to stop stressing over it. And his job during this whole conference is, 1, to make sure I do sit down occasionally and eat, and 2, that I don't kill anybody.
So far, so good.
His job. Yeah. That's his job.
It's not over yet, though.
No. As I told you, you asked me how I was the other day, and I said, do the words impending ulcer mean anything?
Well, I'm looking forward to at some point there being an actual homicide at Bouchercon.
No, that's not going to happen.
Not this one, I don't think. But.
No. I volunteered to help with my mediator skills. I volunteered to take people to another room and talk them down. So,
Well, there you have it. Well, now, Joe, from an author's perspective, what do you gain by attending a conference like Bouchercon, and is it something that's easy to quantify?
Well, if you're looking at it from a promotional point of view, from a marketing point of view, from a what am I going to get for my money and my time point of view, you're probably looking at it wrong. The number of people you're going to meet and the number of books you're going to sell aren't immediately going to on any sort of scale. You just can't consider it worth your while if you go by those numbers. What is important, the reason that so many authors keep coming back, are all the intangible things. It's not how many books you sell. It's not how many hands you shake. It's about the cumulative effect of all of the things that occur after the conference is over. I've gotten so many requests to send stories into anthologies from authors that I've met at Bouchercon. I've gotten speaking requests for other conferences and for libraries, paid speaking requests, because people have seen me at Bouchercon. I have formed some long-standing friendships with many authors who then introduced me to their editors, some of whom I now have projects with, all at Bouchercon. Plus, it's just so much damn fun. Mm-hmm. When you're a writer, it's a solitary profession. I mean, you sit there in front of your keyboard, and you make shit up, and it is without any of the normal coffee cooler conversation that somebody working 9 to 5, somebody working in an office, somebody working in retail or in the service industry, they mingle with their coworkers. They get to swap stories. With writers, we don't have that. So Bouchercon is the biggest gathering of mystery authors of the year, and we get to have peers for the first time. We get to do that coffee cooler conversation. We get to talk about the business and the ups and downs of it with like-minded people who understand what we're talking about. And even if business didn't come of this or sales didn't come of this, that alone is worth the money that you pay to go. And by the way, if you want to meet authors, you want to commiserate with authors, you want to praise authors, they're all going to be at the bar.
Yeah.
When it's all said and done, Joe, at the end of a conference, how do you measure if it's been a success? I always feel, there's a lot of highs and lows during a conference. Sometimes you're really, excited and happy and you're having a great time, and then sometimes you feel like you're not making the headway that you need to make. How at the end of a conference do you say, okay, this was a successful conference, one I'll come to again?
It's always a success. It may not be a success in the sense that you'll come to it again, but anytime you try something as a writer, try any sort of promotion, you're learning from it. It's become part of your experience, part of your wisdom, part of your background. So there are some conferences that I don't feel were worth the time and the money. I still got some things out of them, but it becomes a question of cost effectiveness. Okay, I made certain contacts, I sold some books, I had a good time, but is that worth taking time away from me writing more because I get paid for writing? Well, in some cases, the answer is no. With Bouchercon, the answer is unequivocally yes. It is.
So don't you feel, though, we're not just writers, we're also fans.
Absolutely.
So going to Bouchercon, just like John said, he could still be a fanboy. I'm going to come to St. Louis because I want to come, and because John's putting it on, I'm going to help whatever he wants me to help him with. But I'm going to meet Robert Crace, and I've always wanted to meet Robert Crace.
If you help, I'll set it up so you can have dinner with us.
Ooh, cool.
There you go. Nice.
We'll just make sure that we keep you so you're not between the Gin and Bob.
Okay.
Now, Joe hit something here that's kind of important that I think a lot of authors don't realize.
Sure.
Is because I've heard authors say, oh, Bouchercon's not worth my time. I only sold X amount of books this weekend. If you go into it thinking in terms of how many books you're selling that weekend, you're a fool and you shouldn't be there. Because you're thinking about the whole business wrong, and I hope you still have a day job. The truth is, what you're doing is planting seeds. Mm-hmm. You're talking in front of a group of people. You're standing in line for a buffet. You're in the hallway doing something else. You're meeting people all weekend. And every single one of those people is a potential fan and reader down the line. It's not going to happen all that weekend because they have so much to take in. But 4 months from now, that person could be in a bookstore, they could be at an airport or a supermarket, and they'll see your name on a book cover and go, oh my God, I was standing in line waiting for the meatballs next to this guy, and he was really funny. I'm going to buy the book. And what you're doing is building your readership potential. It's not going to happen immediately, but the long-term effects are amazing. And aside from just potential readers, some of the things Joe hit on, like meeting editors, other authors, you might end up finding out that somebody you're a huge fan of is a fan of your work. And your next book has all of a sudden got a really important blurb on it. There's so many just little things you can't measure that happen over that weekend.
It's a great point. Well, Monty, let's talk a little bit about some of your personal projects aside from Bouchercon. Can you tell us a little bit about your books?
Well, I do write genre fiction, but I'm not straight mystery. I tend to write in the more paranormal, romantic suspense mystery vein than some of the others. And basically at this point, when my Canadian publisher shut down, I'm e-published, and very successfully so. I get nice royalty checks every quarter, so I'm going to continue to do it. But I tend to write, vampires, shapeshifters, witches. I just wrote my first science fiction suspense.
Awesome.
So I'm not straight mystery. I've only had 2 straight mysteries, and then I have one called The Paranormal Mystery, which is a series about a witch who happens to be a lawyer and a shapeshifter private detective, and I call it my Perry Mason meets woo-woo.
It looks like we've got a caller on the line. This might be somebody for our second half of the hours. Is this John Rector by any chance?
This is John Ritter.
Awesome. How's it going tonight, John?
Oh, it's going good. It's going really good.
Welcome to the show. Well, we're just kind of chatting here a little bit with Joe Konrath, Monty Draper, and John Jordan. And we have on the line John Ritter. John, have you been to Bouchercon before? What has been maybe your fondest memory, if you have?
No, I've never been to Bouchercon. I avoided conferences when I didn't have a book deal, just because of the expense and nothing to promote, and just didn't see that it was going to be that beneficial until I really had something to stand behind.
So what do you've just sold your first novel to Tor Forge. I don't know if you guys on the line are familiar with John's work at all, but John has just sold his first book to Tor Forge, the Cold Kiss. So what do you hope to gain as a first-time Bouchercon attendee with the book coming out next year? What do you hope to get by coming?
Well, just the exposure. I'm afraid I missed about the first 15 minutes of the show, but I've been following Joe for a long time on his website. I actually won one of his 69-word short story contests once, I think, a while back. And
you're never going to amount to anything. You'll never get a deal.
I know. So
I'm thrilled like crazy for your success, John. Both with the deal and how well you're doing on Kindle right now. That's awesome.
Thank you. Yeah, it's I've been following you, especially with the Kindle stuff when I started it. With after he did, and Stacy when you popped up with your books on there, and I think Boyd Morrison was out there too, and basically going to Bouchercon. I went to Gorilla Fest and just had such a great time, and going to Bouchercon, just to meet the people that I've communicated with through email or just seen around, just to kind of jump into the water for the first time.
Very cool. I think you're going to have a great time. Well, John, tell us a little bit about Crime Spree magazine. We mentioned it a little bit earlier. What is Crime Spree?
Crime Spree magazine is a magazine that covers crime fiction. The majority of it is books, but we also cover movies, television, on DVD, comics. We review plays. We even cover music occasionally that comes and ties in with crime fiction. And we've kind of wrapped up the way we describe it as Entertainment Weekly for the mystery genre. We just celebrated our 5th anniversary this summer with issue 30, and we've got issue 32 just came out. We're going to have them at Bouchercon. And my wife and I basically came up with the idea when we were in Vegas for Bouchercon. And we sat around, I think it was the end of the conference, Sunday night, with a bunch of people, and we're just like, if you guys could commit to doing 2 articles a year, I think we're going to try this. And we had no idea what to expect, and it just keeps growing and growing, and we get more and more subscribers, and I'm amazed we're still doing it, and I'm thrilled that we're still doing it.
What kind of advice would you give to somebody like John Rector, John Jordan? This is his first conference. What advice would you give to somebody who's attending their first Bouchercon?
Listen to authors who've been there. Listen to the fans who've been around. Pick up on what they're saying, what they like and what they don't like. Try not to be influenced by the market so much as what you want to write, but watch some of these guys on the panels. People like Michael Connelly, who've been around for ages, and she won't be there this year, but Laura Lipman. Some of these people get up in front of a crowd of people who may have never heard of them before, and by the time they're done talking, they've turned the entire room into fans. And I think that's what a lot of people miss by not going to a convention until they actually have a book deal or a book out. Even if you're working on a book and you have plans of getting into this, it's kind of like research for going into the field you want to go into. I mean, if you want to be an astronaut, you start flying and you can take airplane rides. And I think going to these conventions and seeing what goes on here is a big part of it. Because, getting a book written and done is just a small piece of the big puzzle. And Bouchercon, there's just so much to learn from everybody else who's there. And like Phil was saying earlier, you're commiserating with people who are doing the same thing you're doing, and you can really pick up a lot from these people. And this is also a good opportunity to make some connections, which may end up being lifelong friends, people who could pre-read some of your work. If you're working on something and you run into a spot all of a sudden you've got this huge database of people you can just hit up for certain things. Read the scene, does it feel clunky to you? Or I'm stuck here, what do you think? And it's like summer camp. It's a great experience for authors who are about to break into it or have just started, because there's just so much that people aren't even aware of. And after a weekend at Bouchercon, you're going to see and hear so much that you're just like, wow.
It really can be a little bit overwhelming. Monty, maybe you can address that issue a little bit. For somebody like John, or even for me specifically, how do you manage your emotions at a conference like this? It seems like you have to be on from the moment you wake up in the morning until you crash at 3 o'clock in the morning. How do you manage your emotions at a conference of this size?
I would suggest a lot of Red Bull and a lot of coffee. Don't forget to eat.
Do we still have Monty with us? Maybe we lost Monty on the line there.
I can speak in falsetto if you want me to pretend to be Monty.
Well, how do you do it? How do you do it, Joe? You seem, to have an endless flow of energy. How do you manage your emotions at a conference like Bouchercon?
Well, I'm addicted to cocaine, Stacy. No, I'm kidding, of course. Before
I don't know. I think addiction is too strong of a word, Joe. Appreciative.
I can stop when I want to stop. I just don't want to stop. What I would say to John Rector, other than to completely back up everything Mr. Jordan said, was buy drinks. Not just for me, even though you should buy it for me. Be the guy who goes up to authors and says, you know what, I'm a big fan, can I buy you a drink? And once you buy an author a drink, you can pick their brain for 5 minutes. And you can ask a lot of the questions that you're sure to go into this conference wondering about. And then, have you started soliciting blurbs yet for the book?
Yeah, I know. We've got a few so far.
This is a great opportunity to get blurbs, my friend.
It really is. This is a chance to really connect with the right people.
Yeah. So, have your Visa card with you and be ready to hang out at the bar and buy a couple of drinks for the big shots that walk by.
Well, and the big trick here is not to try and sell people on your book, but to sell them on you. Because I think that's something I try to tell people about panels, too. You don't want to just sell them on the particular book you got out. You want them to remember you. Because they don't need to remember the name of your book. They don't need to remember the cover or what it's about. All they need to remember is you. They'll remember your name, they'll find the book, and the rest will come. These are mystery fans. They're used to tracking down puzzles. But I think it's a really good opportunity to meet, like Joe said, people who will be able to do blurbs for you. You can connect with a lot of people running the mystery magazines, a lot of the mystery bloggers, and the website people are there. And just meet these people in person so they can put a face to the name they see on the book when the arcs start going out.
Well, for folks watching at home, this is Book Chatter. I am your host, Stacy Cochran. We're about 40 minutes into our program here. On the line with us tonight, we had Monty Draper, who I think we got disconnected from, but Monty is she's the registration chair for this year's Bouchercon 2009. Also joining us on the line are John Jordan. John is the co-chair of the St. Louis Bouchercon scheduled for 2011. Also, we have two outstanding authors with us. J.A. Konrath, who is the author of the Lieutenant Jack Daniels series of detective novels, as well as a bunch of other novels that have been doing very well this year, which I'd love to talk a little bit about in the last few minutes of the show. And then in addition to that, John Ritter, who is absolutely new to the publishing scene at least, and he has a new novel coming out in 2010, The Cold Kiss, and his self-published novel, The Grove, has been doing extraordinarily well on Amazon Kindle. Well, since I've got two Kindle authors on the line here, I'd love to pick your brains a little bit about how ebooks affect conferences like Bouchercon, which seem to live and die on printed books. What are your thoughts, Joe, on that?
Wow. First of all, we have 3 Kindle authors right now, Stacy, because you're doing extremely well. You've got 2 bestsellers in the top Indie 25. That's kind of funny. Between the 3 of us, out of the 25 best-selling independent Kindle books right now, we've got 10 of the books.
I hadn't thought about that. It's a good point.
Out of the top 25, we've got the top 10 right here on the phone right now. Well, at this point, I think ebooks and print books are still different audiences. Ebooks are still very early adopter. If you remember in the very early years of MP3s, before they even had the players out, the first company to release an MP3 player was sued, if I recall my tech history, because record companies didn't want MP3s to be the format. You know, CDs are the format. This is the format that the gatekeepers decide everybody's going to buy. Ebooks are suffering from too many formats at this point. There are too many competitors, and they're all DRM protected, and they are all incompatible with one another. So we haven't quite hit that golden age yet. We haven't hit that stride. It's still all early adopters, and the early adopters are for the most part, not necessarily the people who would come to an event like Bouchercon. It's just a different type of reader at this point. We'll see how things change as the years roll on.
I was at the SEBA trade show a couple of weekends ago. SEBA, you guys probably know, is the Southern Independent Booksellers Alliance. And it seemed like that was what everybody there was talking about. And it's talked about with fear and panic on the point, and dread and disbelief on the point of independent booksellers. HarperCollins had an interesting rack. They had a rack of ebook cards that a bookseller could actually have in their store, where you could pick up the card in an independent bookstore and buy the book that way via a little postcard, essentially. I thought that was one of the most interesting compromises that I've seen yet to try and bridge the gap between ebooks and independent bookstores.
Well, part of the problem with what you just said, though, that the publishers are having is they see it as a compromise, and the truth is it doesn't need to be a compromise. Ebooks are now here to stay, and anybody who thinks, oh, I'm going to ignore it, it's going to go away, is stoned. They're a part of the future, and it's going to be an integral part of the publishing future. This fear that it's going to take over and books are going to disappear is crazy. In my lifetime, books will never go away. You may see numbers drop a little bit for actual physical books, but numbers will pick up for ebooks and excel that. So somebody who's selling, say, 10,000 right now may drop down to 9,000 or 8,000 with physical books, but pick up another 3,000 or 4,000 with ebooks. And in the long run, they're going to find more readers than they have now. And I think also what's going to happen is there's a whole generation out there who has never picked up a book if they weren't told to do it. And now that they can do it on a device, they're going to discover reading. And eventually, I think that's going to lead them to buying some books. Somebody in college may discover Joe's books on a reader.
We all in a bookstore, sure.
Find out that Joe is coming to their city and go and see Joe, have so much fun, they get caught up and buy a book or two and say, look, I read all these guys' books. I've got one of them, and they're signed. And all of a sudden, they're addicted. It's like the drug. And so I think what's going to end up happening is a lot of people who are going to come to reading because of the ebooks. And I think they're going to gravitate towards real books and keep reading the ebooks. I mean, I don't think it's a choice of one or the other. And I think in the long run, it's going to be good for anybody who's writing because it's just a whole nother dimension to this. It's a whole nother format to bring more readers in. And I think this fear is ungrounded. I think people need to just take a breath. I don't think New York needs to transfer everything to ebooks. And I think they also need to realize that they can't keep everything on paper. It's going to be a balance, and I think they're going to complement each other.
Well, New York is trying to squelch ebooks, John.
Well, that's because there's not a single format, and they don't want to have to take a book and put it in 9 formats.
Okay, first of all, I agree with what you're saying, but what you're saying applies to authors. Okay, authors are always going to sell.
Right.
The artist is going to prevail. The artist is going to constantly have a medium for which people will be able to discover their work. The people who I think are afraid right now are the booksellers and the publishers, and these are the people who have been, since the beginning, making money off of authors.
Right.
Well, if the business model changes, if people start buying their books in a different kind of way, then publishers and booksellers should rightfully be worried about this and should be trying to figure out how they can get a piece of the pie, or else they're not going to get any of the pie. I've really done a lot with ebooks in the last year, and I've really taken a good look at it and really tried to figure out the phenomenon and try to predict what's happening. One of the things I predicted was eventually publishing is going to get wise, and they're going to start cherry-picking some people off of Kindle who are doing well and publishing them. And that's happening.
Well, it's like finding that independent band that is only releasing their music through a website and signing it.
Exactly.
Well,
but
guys,
right now what publishers are doing is publishers are artificially inflating the price of ebooks. When you go on Amazon and you buy the new Dan Brown for $9.99, Amazon is losing money each one it sells. It is being sold to Amazon by the publisher at 40% off the hardcover price. So Amazon is getting each ebook for about $14 and then selling it for $9.99, and it's taking a loss of $3 or $4 each book it sells. Now, how does New York Publishing think this is a sustainable business relationship? And what prevents Amazon, who is a very growing, very rich, very profitable company, what prevents Amazon from saying, why am I dealing with publishers? Publishers throughout history have found authors, and they have printed and distributed the author's books. Do they do more for authors than that? Of course. There's marketing, there's editing. I think people who say published big New York Times books are crap are out of their minds. A lot of work goes into these books, and they all reach a certain level, a certain base level that is a decent level. If you don't like one of them, that's opinion, but that says nothing about the quality of books. Quality coming out of New York right now is terrific, and I think it has been terrific for a very long time. But when we're looking at ebooks, which don't have a physical presence, they're not tangible, they're a bunch of ones and zeros. They don't need to be printed. They don't need to be distributed. There's no mailing. You can copy an ebook indefinitely and send it immediately all over the world with zero cost. Well, what do we need publishers for anymore?
it's a great point. I do, if I can interrupt, I noticed that we had Anthony Neal Smith join us on the line. I want to introduce Neal. Neal is the author of Hogdoggin', Yellow Medicine, Psychosomatic, The Drummer, and he's also the editor of Plots with Guns. Are you there with us, Neal?
Yeah, I'm here.
Well, we've been talking a little bit about Bouchercon in the top half of the hour, and we've kind of transitioned into talking a little bit about ebooks. To take it back to Bouchercon for a moment, tell us a little bit about your fondest memory of Bouchercon. I know you've been to a few over the years. What's your fondest memory of Bouchercon?
Oh, I'd have to say just the first one, which we almost didn't get to attend because it happened a month after 9/11 and it was in Washington, D.C. So I, already had a plane ticket booked for Reagan National Airport and wasn't sure if it was even going to be open at the time. So
I think they opened 2 days before the conference.
Yeah, and I got, I got to fly in and was put in the New Orleans airport way off in this section where you couldn't go to the bathroom or anything while you waited, and you had to sit down on the planes for like 40 minutes after takeoff, and so that just getting to go at all was surreal, like the National Guard with M16s as you got to the terminal. But just being nobodies and being kind of starstruck and a little naive to all this, and just being able to go up to the bar and start calling over people I had only known online, like Vicki Hendricks and several other friends of mine who ran Handheld Crime, and Victor Gischler was there with us, and we were just calling people over saying, come have a drink with us, and didn't give a shit really. It was just the freedom of that was really nice. And then as the years went on, you get more and more responsibility, so but I'll never forget that first day.
That's a great memory.
the dynamic really does change year for year. Even if you're just a fan, no matter what capacity you're going in, every year it changes because you know more people, you're more aware of what's going on in the community. And I mean, I think you look forward to different things. And I would imagine Neal would probably agree with this. At some point during Bouchercon now, I would imagine that one of your favorite parts is actually getting away from the convention for a couple hours and just hanging with your friends.
Yeah, that happens anyway because the more you go to, the more you realize that you're going to see, you know, these panels, which are pretty much authors hawking their books after a while, or the noir panel, which always involves the question, what is noir? As if, you know, they forget from year to year that they already answered that question. So it's like, you know, it's going to be the same answer, remember?
The best answer I ever heard was Paul Johnston in Austin, where he just grabbed the mic and he said, noir is French for black. I'm going to have a look.
Yeah, let's sorry, but if we look like we don't want to be there, that's noir. So, I always hang with my buddies Victor and Sean Doolittle, and that's just danger because that means we're going to go find a golden tea machine in some dark bar 3 blocks away and stay there for a long time. There does come a point where, you know, just getting away from the hotel, it just doesn't feel right for Bouchercon. It feels like you just want to soak in the bar experience, and you want to soak in these people that, especially as an editor of Plots and Guns, I know that there are more and more writers coming to this for the first time because they've been publishing off Lit and Plots with Guns and other online magazines, and they're new to it. And I like to, you know, kind of introduce them to a good time. Let them go back saying, hey, you know, you're a good guy to meet. We met some great people. We had a good time.
So have you guys located a golden tea machine yet in Indianapolis?
I'm sure Victor's looked for one online.
Is there a golden tea website?
I think so. I think you could actually join a league, too, and get a little player's card, like a Diners Club or something.
They have little GPS coordinates in them so you can track them down all over the country if you have to pull off the road real quick and you need a game.
Yeah, I happened to see this Applebee's had one, so. Awesome.
Well, I hope you'll drag John Ritter along with you this year. He's attending. This will be his first conference. He's on the line with us as well. You guys have met before, though. John, you know Neal, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we've met. He rejected one of my stories for Plots with Guns about 4 or 5 years ago, and we played golf once, and we're, you know, mutual friends with Sean Doolittle, and so yeah, we know each other.
I got to see John just kick my ass in golf, and I'm really bad. That's not hard to do. And then he got to see me, my driver, and act like a baby.
No. Like I said, that driver had started a lot of shit with you in that round, and it deserved it.
It was only when we picked up those 2 old guys that made it just worse.
John and Victor?
No, it's like 2 guys that joined up. Like, they wanted to, we were playing 3 together, and these 2 guys were like, let us join you. And then they do the old guy thing, which is, you're playing golf wrong, even though they're not any better themselves.
Oh, yeah. Well, we were talking a little bit. I'd love to get your insights, Neal, and John Ritter as well. Just before you came on the line, Neal, we were talking a little bit about, you know, ebooks. Everybody's talking about them now. They've exploded in sales. If you look at the kinds of sales numbers that publishers are experiencing from 2001 to 2009, it's just like the difference between night and day in terms of millions of dollars of sales. And you were, you know, Neal, one of the first people that I met who had embraced the technology of the internet as a way of distributing stories through Plots with Guns. I just wonder what your thoughts are with all the knowledge that you have on how digital books are changing the landscape of publishing.
You know, really, even though I've been on the web for a long time, I really can't say, as far as the book side of it, exactly what's happening. I know you and John have both done it really well, and I'm even thinking of jumping online with my first novel when the rights revert to me. Not exactly sure how it's changing the business. And I heard John and Konrath talking a bit there about that as well. I know this. I know that I'm not ready to embrace it yet, just because of the expense and the buying the machine, and because I don't know about the formats yet. But it feels too much like the Beta VCR, Blu-ray, high-def DVD thing, more than it feels like a new way to get us books yet, you know?
John Ritter, how do you respond to that?
Well, you know, it's kind of funny because I fell in love with my Kindle the second I bought it, and everything. You know, I downloaded so many books onto it, and I wouldn't leave the house without the thing. But after a few months, I started missing regular books, just the paper-bound books. And I think mostly, you know, the Kindle is just a different format. I use it mostly now when I'm slacking off at work and I don't want my boss to know that I'm reading something. Then I pull out the Kindle, because you can't just pull out a book. But otherwise, if I'm at home, I always reach for a paper-bound book now, and it's, you know, I don't have anything against the Kindle. I still love it, but it's sort of lost its sheen with me, and it's just another format now. You know, so I don't think it's going to replace books by any means. I think it's just going to take its place on the shelf, and it'll be there right next to them.
I think it's going to be like having a Walkman. It's going to allow you to take a crap load of books with you on vacation instead of filling up your suitcase with books. It's going to be a whole other way to add to the reading and not replace it.
I don't know. I like bringing my Kindle to Bouchercon.
I like to choose, you know. I like to actually pick my choose the books I'm taking on vacation instead of taking 10 of them. I like the process of narrowing it down. But it also reminds me a bit of, now that I buy music online sometimes, I find that I forget about it. I forget that it's on the computer, but the CDs I bought a long time ago with the actual liner notes and cover art, you know, I still pick those up and listen to them all the time.
I still play records.
Yeah, I mean, I've even got a whole tray of cassettes from the 80s, you know. It's like something about the physical product. And when you see, you know, books that are really well made, like mixed press books or the Knopf ragged pages, stuff like that, it makes you say, you know, it's not that bad of a technology. It's like the newspaper guy said, you know, if newspapers were a new technology, people would say, you mean it doesn't have a battery? It only costs like 50 cents, and I can carry it with me everywhere and throw it away when I'm done? That's awesome.
I mean, books are cordless. You don't have to worry about power outages, nothing to recharge.
It's a good point.
And it's not proprietary.
Hey,
they just take up space. That's not it.
let me toss it over to Konrath, and we'll start wrapping up here in a minute or two. Joe, if you're still on the line with us, and I think you are, one of the things talking about ebooks that I think is really interesting, to me at least, because I've kind of had a breakthrough this summer with it, is I'm looking at Kindle going international. They're actually releasing the Kindle to 100, I think it's 100 countries on October 19th, so that'll be like Monday in a week or so. What are your thoughts on how that's going to affect your sales overseas now with Kindle books?
They're going to go up. And Kindle is the tip of a very large iceberg. I just signed deals with Sony for their reader. I've got my early stuff up on Smashwords, which is shuttling them over to Barnes & Noble on their reader, and then I just signed a deal with iTunes. And this is all the early books of mine that New York didn't want. And I'm paying my mortgage every month with these sales. And these books are still for free on my website. You can get these books for nothing. But people like the convenience of being able to download something immediately to their device of choice for cheap. I keep my ebooks very cheap. They're all under $2. And that seems to be the sweet spot for Kindlers and for ebook readers. I mean, that's pocket change, you know. A coffee costs more than that. Why the hell not try a new author for $1.99? And, well, you know, 10,000 people have done that already.
Looks like we've got a caller on the line. If I can take the caller. Do we have a caller on the line from area code 201?
I'm here.
Tell us your name and what's your question.
My name's Philip, and it's not a question. It's just that I'm an old guy, and I feel that books are kind of like the one-offs of fashion. I actually like the fact that I'm holding the book in my hand, and it's a one-off. I bought the book. It's not a Gap jean. It's an important book, and I'm holding it in my hands and I'm reading it, and that's just because I'm old and stupid.
I appreciate.
It's not about it at all. I love books. I think everybody loves books.
I have over 15,000 in my house. I love.
Oh God! I hope you have a fire extinguisher.
And insurance and dial 2 blocks from a fire station.
Okay, that's just my point. Sorry to bother you.
Thanks,
No
Phil.
bother at all. Thanks for calling.
Ciao.
$25 for a hardcover is too much. For 8 hours of entertainment, when you can get an entire DVD season, which is $45 of entertainment for $9, $25 for a hardcover is too much. And if you play the technology question, which is, if we grew up reading ebooks, would there be any advantage at all to inventing paper? And when people talk about their love for paper books, it's because that's all we've had. We romanticize it. Of course we do. We have a lot of great memories, great feelings associated with books. Yeah, we love how they look. I don't have as many books as John Jordan does. I've got about 5,000 or 6,000 of them. I love them on the shelf. I adore them. You know, you'd have to kill me before I get rid of my books. The last 15 books I've read on my iPhone using Kindle or Stanza. Do I still buy books, print books? Absolutely. But I'm reading on my iPhone more and more, and you know what? I'm not the only one.
Well, you bring up a really good point. You bring up a good point about this price point. New York being so scared about ebooks overtaking their print business, why don't they put a price freeze on these books? Why don't they roll back the prices to even $19.95? If they're so concerned about so many people switching over to the ebooks, do something about it and price us back to paper. Make it more affordable so we can buy more paper books.
Can they do that, though? I mean, can they afford to do that? That's the problem.
It's an archaic business model that functions on reserve against returns. I mean, it's a broken business.
Well, and the truth is, though, with the returns system set up the way it is right now, if you eliminate it, you will effectively shut down every bookstore in this country, and publishing will end. Because bookstores will not take a chance on a book if they can't return them. Instead of a 50-copy display in Barnes & Noble, you're going to see 5 copies. When those 5 copies are gone, they'll order another 5. And it's just because it's been in place for so long, they can't change it at this point. And also part of that goes back to Nixon. But also part of that goes back to Nixon enforcing an inventory tax, which is where this all came from in the first place, back in the 70s. So once again, we can blame something on Nixon.
It's always good to blame something on Nixon. It's interesting.
Well, it's handy to have a scapegoat that's dead.
You know, the interesting thing about the rack that I saw at the SEBA trade show that HarperCollins was, they had, you know, HarperCollins had their big booth at the Southern Independent Booksellers Alliance trade show. And what they had was basically, you know, sort of a comic book style circular rack that you could spin around, but on the rack, instead of books, they had these hanging 4x6 cards with the book cover on the front of the card, the description on the back. It looked like a book, except it's a little postcard. And one of the things I asked about it to a couple of the booksellers was whether they were returnable, since that's the business model that publishing and booksellers have been operating under for, you know, 80 years or whatever. And HarperCollins is actually, if I'm understanding this correctly, is not selling these on a returnable basis. So a bookstore would buy, you know, 200 copies or whatever they would want for Dan Brown's latest novel, or, you know, for Anthony Neal Smith's latest novel, and they wouldn't be returnable cards, but they only cost $1 to the bookstore.
Right, so at that cost, why not? See, that's the problem with the returns on the hard copies is, I mean, the bookstore's coughing up, I think they get 45% discount, So, that's a lot of money tied up. If the price point was different, the return wouldn't be such a big issue.
So it'll be interesting to see if that catches on at all. I just think the tone that I saw, at least at that conference or that trade show, it's just one of fear. These booksellers don't. I mean, some of them don't even use email. That's how antiquated they are, and it's. I just don't know how they're going to keep up with the new business model.
Well, and the truth is, as I said before, you don't have to choose between one or the other. You can have both. It's like choosing something different for dinner every night. You don't have to read all books on Kindle or all books on paper. You can do a little of both. I don't listen to everything on CD or on the iPod or on the cassette or even at work 8-track. Different formats are perfectly acceptable together.
Here's my parting shot, and I'm passionate about this subject, as you guys can obviously see. I just got a royalty statement from Hyperion that did my 6 Jack Daniels books, and I'm in a royalty situation with them. They gave me a fair chunk of money for my advance, and I've earned that out, and twice a year I get a nice chunk of money from them because they keep selling more and more. I checked my last royalty statement, and I measured it against what I'm doing on Kindle, and this is Kindle prior to 100 other countries, and eventually worldwide, and this is prior to when I just signed with iTunes and with Sony and with Smashwords and Barnes & Noble. Just what I've done in the past with Kindle since April. If I had the rights to all of my Jack Daniels books back, I'd be making more money than they're giving me right now. Really, really shocked the hell out of me to see that. And it really makes me wonder, next book I write, do I want to find a publisher? Or do I want to keep the rights forever?
But don't you also think
my
that part of those sales are because you had so many books out first and people discovered you through that?
Oh, absolutely.
If it was Kindle only, do you think as many people would have discovered you?
Well, Stacy has had books in print for many years now, and he's a Kindle bestseller. I don't know how many of his sales are based on how many people found him in Barnes & Noble, because, Stacy, correct me if I'm wrong, you're not in a lot of Barnes & Nobles.
No, it's completely online.
So here's a guy who's basically new, if we want to call you new, even though you've been kicking it around with us for years now. And he's a bestseller. He's selling quite a few ebooks. And that's not based on his name recognition. John's book isn't even out yet, Mr. Rector. And you're a bestseller, and you're making a good chunk of change of this. Are you not?
No, it's nice, that's for sure.
And how are people finding it if you don't have any books in print? So, Jordan, yes, I believe, I'm getting a lot of crossover. I'm getting fans who know me from my series and from my print books. But I also think I'm being discovered for the first time on these devices.
Well, and that's why I think people ignoring it is foolish. And I think booksellers being afraid of it, it's silly, because the truth is, independent bookstores can't compete with chains anyway. It all boils down to how they run their business. And bookstores that hand sell and know what they're selling and are knowledgeable about it are going to be successful no matter what format the book is in.
Well, it's been a great conversation. It's been a great conversation, folks. I think this is definitely one that we will be continuing in Indianapolis. I want to remind the viewers that we've had, and we have had, believe it or not, 121 different folks pop in and out of here in the past hour and 10 minutes or so that are guests for the show. This is Book Chatter. I am your host, Stacy Cochran. The guests for the show have been Monty Draper, John Jordan, J.A. Konrath, Anthony Neal Smith, John Rector, and my co-host, who has been awfully quiet this show, R.J. Keller, who I'm not even sure she's still on the line. But
I'm here.
Check out. Do you have any parting thoughts for us, R.J.? You've been listening to all this very politely. I thought you'd jump in at some point.
Oh, well, I am Kindle only. I've been finding lots of success on Kindle, so that's pretty much all I have to say about that. I definitely think ebooks are, I guess that's not all I have to say about that, but I definitely think ebooks are here to stay. I don't think they are ever going to replace print books, but it's definitely an excellent way for up-and-coming authors to really, make themselves known and to start a platform if they do choose to go, the traditional route, or if not, to actually, make a go of it and be successful if they're adept at marketing.
I think that's where we're at.
With that?
I think that's where we're at.
Yep, definitely.
Well, for all of us here at Book Chatter, check out Bouchercon2009.com and definitely check out Bouchercon coming up in San Francisco in 2010. And of course, John Jordan is co-chairing Bouchercon 2011 in St. Louis. It's a beautiful town. They have that big arch there by the river. I love it.
Hard to miss.
Yeah, it's kind of a hard town to miss. Thank you all very much for being on the show tonight.
Thanks for having us.
And we'll see you all in Indianapolis.
You got it.
Safe travels, everybody. Have a good night. So for all of us here at Book Chatter, that is our show. Have a great week.